Hello, I'm Earl Gibbs, and welcome to Earl Gibbs Live. I have a very interesting guest. You will meet my guest after these words. So, Windward Islands Bank for all your banking needs in St. Martin. The Windward Islands Bank located in Phillipsburg, Cul-de-Sac, and Simpson Bay. The first bank in St. Martin is the Windward Islands Bank. And GEBE, local water and electricity company. GEBE, serving St. Martin for over 6 decades. It's GEBE. And with me on the program, I have a very interesting gentleman, former Prime Minister of St. Martin, former minister in the Parliament of Nelson Antilles, and Senator in the Parliament of Nelson Antilles, Mr. Gumbs. How are you doing, Mr. Gumbs?
Good day, Oral. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, greetings to your viewers, and happy to be here and to be able to share some information, whatever you like to ask.
Well, it's good, thanks for accepting the invitation. You come with a wealth of knowledge. You've been recently Prime Minister of St. Martin from what period of time?
I served the country of St. Martin as Prime Minister from December 19th, 2014 to, I think, November 19th and November 30th, somewhere there.
Since 10, it's been very turbulent for St. Martin. I mean, even when you were Prime Minister, you had the issues deal with.
Yeah, I must let your viewers know, just to remind those, and for those who may not have known, in 2014, I was not in politics. I left active politics in 2006, and in December 2014, the MP, Theo Heiliger, was slated to be the Prime Minister, and he called me and asked me if I would come and help out and serve as Prime Minister. So after consideration, I considered it, and then I figured, well, let me make the next contribution to St. Martin, and accepted. So we were in a cabinet of 5 members because they had issues with the others candidate to be screened, pass the screening. So we were, how you would say, considered like a business cabinet, because none of the people in the cabinet were on a political list. So that was, let's just call it maybe probably St. Martin's first business cabinet. Since then, we have not had what you would say a cabinet with people that were not on the slate, simply because the narrative became, for you to be minister, you should have run on a list and carried political responsibility. But the Constitution and the structure of a parliamentary democracy permits that the elected officials can refer to someone who was not on a political list to be a minister. And that has happened all over the world where you have a parliamentary democracy system, and Curacao, Aruba, and the Netherlands. So, but I served from December 2014 until November 2015. And we got the motion of non-confidence, which is pretty famous, being in the air in an airplane and being fired from position.
But it's quite interesting, because when you look at St. Martin today, from 10 to now, it's been very turbulent.
Yes, it's been very turbulent, and from what I have experienced in 2015 and what I know what's taken place since 2015, the situation is regretfully that the outside forces is manipulating and deciding basically what happens in government and who stays in government and who, I know that firsthand, because
when you say outside forces, that's quite a broad.
Well, outside, they know who they are. They know who they are. They're outside forces. I won't mention any names, but those are people, who has run campaigns and supported particular candidates on particular slates, particular party lists, and they financiers and so, and they basically. If things isn't going their way, or if there's something that they want and they're not getting, they're willing to do whatever it costs to turn on the government. Regretfully, what we experienced with that is that they convince members in parliament to move away from their party and to vote to bring down governments. Regretfully, what happens is that those same people who they have convinced, by going against their party or voting to bring down a government that is supported, eventually ends up, lost somewhere, and their political career has been shortened because people eventually don't trust you once you do those kind of tricks.
But are you surprised what has happened? Because you was a part of the former Nelson days. You understand the system very well. We're now in this special arrangement in the kingdom where we're a country within the kingdom, St. Martin, Aruba, and Curaçao with the Netherlands. And what we are seeing on this island today and for the past 12 years is nothing but political confusion.
Yes. It's again, I personally, like I told you just now, it comes back to the forces outside determining what goes on. I mean, there's talks, and where there's talks, there's obviously truth to it. And I've heard it myself personally. Some people boast around and say, I have 2 horses in parliament, or I got 1 horse, and my horse is going to vote like this tomorrow, and my horse is going to do that tomorrow. So I think what we have to do is we have to keep instilling that, if you're going to postulate yourself, you have to have a strong mind and, not be weak that you can be convinced, by outside force, And what they do, I call it a sort of decorated bullying, I know in one case, they really bullied one guy who would support my government, and accuse him and tell him, look where he's living, look where others are living.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And then convince him, if you come with us, you're going to have a better life, you're going to have a better position, you're going to be able to do this, you'll be able to do that. And then when he goes and he sides with them, and then he falls out, and then he doesn't get anything that was promised to him. Wow. So those are the things that's going on. So we have to be strong. And get people with strong personalities that will not waver and get inside there and not be bullied by anybody to go against the government. Because they look at their own interests. They never look at the full island interests. And every time there's a change in government, it's a disaster because then everything changes. Then the operations, the government, the civil servants, they have problems adjusting, and then you got to go move people around. So it's a chaos completely that every time a government is changed.
But you're well respected as a politician, a former member of parliament, a former prime minister, former minister also in the former Nelson.
I was former state secretary of justice and general affairs, yes.
Right. So, when you look at the situation now, right, and you're currently on the steering committee, which is a very important committee for the rebuilding of
steering committee of the trust fund, at the World Bank.
Do you think the Netherlands is worried right now, or they really don't care what's going on?
Well, I'll tell you what. From my knowledge and my view and my experience, not only the Netherlands, trust me, on the whole geopolitical atmosphere, everybody, is looking at us. The Netherlands, the French government, Paris, the United States of America, everybody is looking at St. Martin because what is happening, people tell you, oh, don't worry, government change, Italy changed so many governments every year, but that's Italy. Here it's a difference. We're in the Caribbean. And besides that, over the years, all the incidents that happened, first of all, our neighbors in the Caribbean, I wouldn't say they are worried, but they are amazed because they couldn't understand. They can't understand. In 2015, I happened to be in the Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, for a conference on the EU. And at the first reception, I had the premiers from the surrounding islands, Mr. Gumbs, Prime Minister, explain us, how is it possible that your government can fall so often? How is your government structure? And then you have to explain them about a parliamentary democracy system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's amazing. So it's not only the Netherlands, I think, that I'm sure it's every day the Washington D.C., the surrounding countries, and so is looking at us and the surrounding islands, and hopefully we can bring some stability and change the direction of really keeping stability in place and try to do the correct things.
I said to some people privately that the issue with GBE is either going to bring down this government or bring down GBE. And when you look at the situation right now, 2 other board members resigned.
Again today.
Yeah,
yesterday.
So it looks like it's going to go all downhill.
Yes. Let me go back a little bit. I know, I don't have to say think, I know GB pretty good, for 4 consecutive years while I was state secretary, because GB was owned by the central government before.
Right.
So between 1998 and 2004, I served as not only as State Secretary of Justice and General Affairs, but I was also the shareholder rep for GEBE and for Winier on the request of my friend from Sabre, MP Ray Hassel. So I know GB, from those days, and having studied electrical engineering also, you will have an idea of what electricity company does and how it works and so. And it's really sad to see what has been going on there. And I think my advice, a few people have asked me what I think should be done. And I said that every effort has to be made to try to get the company stabilized, the situation stabilized, and also to try to save it, because it's besides the fact that it's got its creditors and it's providing a main thing. Right. Nowadays, without electricity, you can't do anything.
Exactly.
You can't work here. Mm-hmm. Your station can't work. Nothing works.
Right.
And that is the how important it is. And we have to, at a certain moment, try to again, and sorry, I'm going to bring in the outside forces, the bullies that is trying to bully their way through and have their favorite people in key position.
Yeah.
And that should be stopped, And I expect and I think government will realize that and do it. And just put, a group of people. There's another thing we talked about just now about holding positions and so. There is a feeling, not only in St. Martin, but I think throughout the world in certain countries, where it's the time for the millennials. They tell you that it's their time now, and they're going to do things differently than before. I try to, as far as I can, tell millennials and tell younger people, look, it's all nice. I was young once upon a time too, and I thought I could have changed the world and saved the world. But you hit your head against the wall a couple of times, and then you realize you got to cool down and still go back and act, because it's very simple. Down the road, if you go down the road, you drive down the road, with your new car. If you don't know where the potholes are, if you don't know where the pools of water are in the night, you're going to drive through them and you're going to get hurt, or you're going to mash up your car. So there's nothing wrong. You don't have to go and say you did it. There's nothing wrong in calling the older heads who has been down that road before and say, listen, I'm going down that road. You've been down there before. Where are the potholes? What should I look out for? Where is it slippery? Where is there a turn that I should be careful with, Right. And all those little small things. I think I'm very privileged and blessed, because outside of politics, there's a group of young people that continuously. A couple months ago, I had to take a break from them. They would invite me and pick my brains for hours and hours. So that is nice. But we have to get a formula of mixing experience with young to be able to bring over the knowledge, because book knowledge and what you learn in university is one thing, but experience of life is a total different thing that you can't get in school. And another thing I think we should start to look at, we have a lot of know-how on the island, Maybe not all of them are born here, but there's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of professionals in different fields that is walking around on this island. And I would think, my personal opinion, there's nothing wrong in asking them to, and then I know a few of them would like to make a contribution. You know, they live in here, some of them may be retired or whatever. Let's use them with their experience, you know, and then you get a balance in getting different things done. There's nothing wrong in anywhere you live to ask the elders how it was or how we can.
But you know that modern politics is tribal. This family, all connected, makes it extremely difficult for an outsider to get involved or try to help, because look, I know some people tell me, look, I went on the list. It's I who had to work hard to get those votes. Why should I bring someone else now to the job that I asked the people to vote for me for?
Well, you work hard. You work hard to get the job to go to Parliament. But
exactly. You
didn't work hard to get a job to go on a supervisory board of directors of a company.
Right.
If you went on a political party slate for you to be able to get a position on a supervisory board of a government-owned company, then you went on the list for the wrong purpose. Okay. If you went on a list and you went on a list to try to get elected to represent the people in the parliament, okay? If you didn't get into parliament, you know what you can do? Your colleague from the list that got in there, you can work with him and find out and brief him, and together with him bring issues that's in the interest of the community so that your party can work better to solve the problems. But what we got a situation, and that is the most fearful part that I see happening. We got a problem with issues with stability in government and the government-owned companies and so. But we have a bigger problem, I think, that is developing, and that is the shrinking of the middle class in this society. Yeah. So, and that has to do with the whole approach of ideology on government, on policies and so. If you have a middle class that is continuously shrinking and only the higher class is growing and growing and growing, and your lower class is also growing, then your middle class, which is a buffer between lower and upper, if that keeps shrinking, you run a big risk there. Because once that disappears, then you're asking yourself for chaos. And then what do we call development? You know, we continuously for too long has been on this philosophy, this narrative that development is building, you know, build condos, build towers, build apartments, build this, build that. When are we gonna, like I asked in 2015, when are we gonna get away now and start building people? When are we gonna start putting really money for programs for people? And I invite all the politicians lately. I said, you know, let me take you for a drive through the island. You know what? And the island is not Phillipsburg to Kubukoi. The island is Dutch Quarter, Middle Region, all over. You know, let's go up 911, you know, and let's go down in Nazareth and those places to see what it is, because we have to pay attention to those areas to really build them up. Otherwise, that's the biggest crisis we might be facing, besides the GBs and the government falling.
It's very
when your society is just shrinking, your middle class is shrinking and disappearing.
It's very interesting to hear you say that. The reason why yesterday I said to someone that during Claude what it is, Claude used to brag about how many millionaires he created in his government. In other words, local business people. And today, this government can't brag of creating any local millionaires. They're actually destroying it.
Yeah, well, you know, this particular government, you know, in no defense to them, but I tell you what, they have not had it easy, and not because of what local issues and so. I mean, they've had the very bad thing is the pandemic. The pandemic has caused disaster throughout on this island and throughout the rest of the world. If you follow the development even in the United States, up to now, the results and the effects of the pandemic has only now some of them are suffering. So this government has had its challenges. The Prime Minister is doing her utmost, I think, in many areas. There's a lot of, how you say, I would say fires to out, but a lot of issues to look at and so. But the fact of what you're talking about, building millionaires, that the government, this government, and probably other governments before this one, has built some millionaires too, Don't forget. Don't forget. Now, it all depends. Maybe it's millionaires who came in to St. Martin, let's say from surrounding countries or whatever. But in the days when Claude said he built millionaires, yes, that was the Raul Illiges, the Reggies, and, local born here people. But since then, we've built a lot of millionaires that not necessarily were born in this island.
In fact, and I said that yesterday.
Yeah.
What we have done, and this is the dangerous part of it, we have worked hard at destroying our local millionaires so they're becoming less, while building outsiders as millionaires. Some come to St. Martin with holes in their pants, and now they're multi-millionaires.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side of it, actually.
Yeah, the flip. Well, that's there's several factors that lead to that. Let me be honest and be fair. Government doesn't really build. Yeah, they build by providing opportunities and so, but we also, as what is called, let us call, how we call it that, locals. What is a local? Let us go back to the generational, let's call them locals. We had great opportunities. What we have done, we have messed it up for ourselves also.
That's true.
We got to be honest with that. We have to be honest with that. I mean, I sit down and I share the story sometimes what I know from my side about Najiko. Najiko was a local only by 5 people, 5 families, and it has evolved, it has gone, because what happened, we don't pay attention. We've made some mistakes, and those people, those locals have made some huge mistakes. The mistakes that I think a lot of them have made, and now we can talk about that because it's 2020 vision now. We had 5 families that started in Najiko. Not one of them said to their children or to their grandchildren, come here, you is going to study insurance business. Not one of them. Not one of them has said it. And not only in that sector, but in also different sectors. So what happened, if you don't have it instilled in you, and it's not, what happened, we don't have it instilled in us to tell our generation what you got to do.
Yeah.
Okay? And then it lost because somebody comes in, and then globalization becomes big, and it eats you up too.
You're right.
We see that in the insurance sector. We see that in the car dealer section.
Oh, yeah.
We see it all over. We see it in the banking section.
Mm-hmm.
We see it. You name it, and we see it. And the point is, I think what happened at a certain time, we concentrated a lot on the fact that we have 130 nationalities, and we're best, and we're a melting pot. We're a melting pot. I don't know if how I'm sure your cooking skills are good, but when you put a concoction in a pot and you start melting it down, whatever you accustomed of putting into it will disappear.
Yeah.
If you boil it long enough, if you're accustomed to making pumpkin soup and you want to make a vegetable soup, you can put how much pumpkin you want, but it will match away and go away, and the other vegetables will be stronger. But those are things that we have to sit down, evaluate, study, and then see how we're going to move forward. And then I believe that at a certain moment, a country, islands, is built by the inclusion of everybody.
That's true.
We see that in the United States. We see that in the Netherlands. I mean, who would ever thought that Turk would be the mayor of Rotterdam?
Yeah.
We just saw it in elections yesterday in Britain.
Yeah.
The gentleman is an Indian descent.
Yeah.
Whoever thought that an Indian descent would be running, almost won the prime ministership of England. So those are things we got to look at. And at a certain moment, we have to get together and say, in the best interest of everybody of the island, let us start planning it properly.
You know, you mentioned the middle class shrinking. And I remember back in 1992, 93, the Dutch government sent in a number of experts here at the tax office. Their mission was to really turn things around. Well, 27, 30 years later, we have more problems now and issues where the middle class is literally being stifled to death by the tax office. The elderly also. What do you think can be done to really kind of stabilize this? Because our people want to pay taxes, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's only our people that they can find because everyone else either disappear or they're not there.
Well, you know, I tell you something. A good thing you brought up about the Dutch. I remember in those periods, in the tax office had a Dutchman. I forgot his name, but I can still see him that you bring it up now. And you know what his job was? His job was to, every morning, look at a newspaper and see what's for sale. And he would see maybe a boat for sale, best offered, leaving island. And he would make a note of it, and he would go and find out who this person is that's selling this boat that's leaving the island.
Yeah.
And he had his authority, what they call a buitengewoon police van agent, to go and tell a person, okay, you leaving the island. I see, yeah, well, why are you leaving? Yeah, oh, you know, I had enough, I got a new job. And then he will go and really check to see if that person has his taxes up to date. That's how you got to do it. We're a small island. Look, what happens with our system of collecting? Okay, if and you got to be, people might criticize me for it, but you have all the nightlife activities taking place. Has anybody gone down and checked them and say, well, let me see what you got. Where's your license? Where's your this? Where's your that? So there's got to be implementation of rules and regulations. The implementation part. Yeah. You remember? let me give you an example. You remember the time when the seatbelts in cars was everybody driving around with seatbelts, but when they're crossing the border, they put it on and they put it on because they know if the gendarme catch them without a seatbelt on, they're paying €90. So as long as you don't have a system in place that you are implementing checks and balances, don't care who it is, you know, whether your brother, your sister. My job is to make sure you pay and go and see locals and non-locals. Then you will get. So the whole problem with government with taxes is compliance. It is too small a basis, and what happens is very easy because those, you know, our Gibbs who we got him on file here, you know, he's been paying. He's easy to find, but the guy who's not easy to find, we got to make that special effort to go out and find him, and you know, just do the job. Yeah. So. That is one part. So when that Dutchman was here, I tell you, what happened, the incomes, revenues of government raised because you have to be on top of the ball every day and you have to collect. We're seeing what's happening in Curacao now. Curacao has a new government, and according to the press report, this government in Curacao, the Minister of Finance, I mean, they're collecting money from off the road, unbelievable. You know, if you read the Dutch newspaper, the Curacao newspapers. So Curacao liquidity position is improving slowly but surely because money is coming in. You have to go on the road and get it, and stop the favoritism if there's any. You know.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember Guy Galara. He was
yeah.
But you know, one time that guy, he told me, he said, he was complaining about St. Martin and the political bosses in St. Martin. He said to me, they're the problem.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't mincing words at all.
Yeah.
Today now, probably it's different. You can't point fingers at political bosses per se.
Well, you know, I think the law, as far as I know, the law gives the competent authority to do the collection a lot of power. And that power, that authority, can and should be used. And if, you know, somebody from upstairs or whoever was to call, I think the person has to be strong enough and say, no, it has to go. This is what we got to. This is what we got to think. We got to be firm in what we're going to do.
Right.
We cannot continue just giving this one a chance, the other one a chance, and so you got to be firm and you got to say no is no. Probably you won't last. I didn't last because as prime minister, because I told some people, it's no, no, no. It's not being done because it's not in the interest of the country.
Exactly.
And some people don't like that.
When you look at the airport coming along very slowly, but it looks like things are on schedule now.
Well, the airport is a different story.
But you understand it well because you was an air traffic control.
I work at the airport 14 years as an air traffic controller, and a lot of people don't know, but I'm the first in Martin that got a scholarship from the United Nations to study airport operations and management back in 1978 at the FAA.
But it's still important you're the first.
Well, yeah, but I've been the first in a lot of things, but so I know about the airport, I know about the operations and everything. And I'm going to be honest with you, let me say the airport, the delay in the construction of the airport has to do with after the hurricane. The whole confusion that was met there, the whole issue of agreements with bondholders. Don't forget, with the bondholders, the money from NAGICO, where did it have to go? To the bondholders first. So you couldn't use that for anything. And also, it took a while at the airport with the reconstruction and the repairs, because it's very complicated. It's very complicated, and it's moving now. They've done a few good things at the airport. The fact that the bondholders, the loan by the bondholders now, is taken over by a consortium of local financiers, St. Martin, Curacao, and Aruba, I think is a very positive point. So that would bring ease and peace because the interest is also lower. So, but the airport is moving, as far as I know from what I've been briefed on it. Of course, just like everything else, what we see in the States, in America, about because of the supply chain being slowed down, without a doubt, everything is gonna find itself in delays.
Do people ask you what you think about the whole idea of opening up the airport to flights where, I'm trying to remember the right word now again, for pre-clearance, so that you don't have to go through customs immigration when you get to America? Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think it's not?
Listen, pre-clearance, I believe in doing things step by step. There was a lot of promotion and narrative about pre-clearance. I think that had to do with mostly important, more so the building that had to be built. But the pre-clearance story, let me be honest with you, a lot of the promoters of the pre-clearance, I don't think they were fair enough to the people to explain them in total and clearly what the cost would be. And also, not only the cost, but the fact of what it would do to the congestion of airport, the traffic at the airport. Yeah. It's nice to say more, Oral, but more at the risk of what? At the risk of more pressure on an air traffic control system that needs attention, that needs needs more resources, that needs more people to work. And we tend to believe that we will forever be the hub. Everybody else is growing.
Yeah.
Don't ever forget that. Why should Anguilla, who has the space to build a huge runway? People don't know this. There was once a plan to build a runway on Anguilla, twice the length of Juliana owned.
Wow.
But it never materialized. But Anguilla has flat land. They can take flights from anywhere, And of course they're going to grow because it's for convenience, So we must not think that we will always be there we will be there to assist and have some flights going to Anguilla. But Anguilla, it's like they're growing up. They're going to want their own flights too, and it's going to be more convenient for them. Pre-clearance, for me, has not been studied well enough, and also, in my opinion, it has a positive part that the people in the flights so will be able to go to airports, without having to clear immigration and customs in the States. But then I think the promoters never came out honest and tell the people that we will have to pay for the schooling, we will have to pay their salaries, we will have to pay for their housing. All of that was not detailed out to the people.
So there's a lot of costs involved.
All the costs involved. And now what you get is that the United States taking a position and saying, for the time being, we don't want to talk about it. And that's where it's stuck.
Okay.
The U.S. consulate came up, and told the authorities that here, the U.S. consulate from Consul General, and that's a position that the State Department appears to have taken, and it's on the table now.
All right. In case you've just joined us, you're watching Oral Gibbs Live, or you're listening to Oral Gibbs Live on Hot 99.9 FM, or on YouTube, Facebook. My guest is a former Prime Minister of St. Martin. Held almost every position in government. That is my guess. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue with him, Mr. Marcel Gumbs, right here on Oral Gibbs Live.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself. Promises, we can make it if we work together. That's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation, yes we can. The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it. Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Oh, never give up. Oh, never give up. We can make it. Oh, never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it. The power to serve, standing for community. OGB got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy. OGB.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/.
My guest on the program is former Prime Minister of St. Martin, Mr. Marcel Gumbs. We're here speaking with him. Mr. Gumbs, when you look at St. Martin, the government of St. Martin have a number of companies that are corporations. Now, the history of how this started, maybe we should touch on that before I ask you the other question.
Yeah. What happened is that all the companies that government have now, like the telephone company, the harbor, the airport, they were what they call services within the government administration. You had the luchthavendienst, you had the telefoondienst, and so what happened is that government at that time, it became not a norm, but the government on all the islands started realizing that they do not have the capital to put into these companies to modernize them and keep them up to date, because the development, for instance, in telecommunication was going so rapidly. So what government came up with a scheme of taking them, okay, taking them away from government and make them a company where government is a sole shareholder. So in that way, you could the companies can go, they can get commercial loans as a company, and they can expand and provide service to keep up with, for instance, telecommunication or shipping or whatever throughout the region. And that's where this whole idea of companies being formed. The intention was also for them to get the financing, but for them to structure them in such a way that government, the political influence would be less and less where the operating of the company is concerned.
But that didn't happen.
Well, sometimes it didn't happen, and sometimes it happened. It just happened recently, for instance, at the airport. At the airport, they just appointed new members of the board of the operating company, the holding, which owns the operating company, went through a process, an exercise of placing ads and having company evaluate the candidates and all that. So the new members on the board of the operating company at Juliana Airport now were appointed without any input or any influence or anything from the political angle.
Okay.
Because it was done through the holding that is owned by the company, by the government, and the holding owns the operating company. So that, I think, it happened and it took place, and it didn't get the necessary attention and the media coverage, I think. But I think that's a perfect example to show that it can work if we put ourselves and put people in place who can do it, and it can be carried out. So that's where the idea of putting things in companies started. And what happened is that they were doing well, and with their growth and with their taxes and their activities, government-owned companies. Not to forget, the airport was doing good and paid back its loans that it got, its original loans, under the leadership of our Governor Eugene Holliday.
Right.
Don't forget that airport, as far as my information tells me, paid off some of its bills way before the designated time. Okay, and then it changed, management changed, and then another loan was taken out, and that second loan was taken out was to finance the moving the fuel farm, building the fire department building, all before Hurricane Irma. But those things never took place with loans, with the monies, because the fuel farm is still there, the fire department building is still unbuilt, and so you had different things. So things could be done, but it all depends on the supervisory boards who basically guides it, and the management that is put in place at these government-owned companies. Let me mention another thing. I see it came up again, I read it somewhere. What happens is that we put people on government-owned companies as supervisory board, I think without really explaining them and without having an insight in corporate law structures of the country. And some people goes on these supervisory boards. It sounds good, it's nice, you take the decisions and so, and you're taking decisions on hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe, could be of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. But we tend to forget that the law says that even though you're on the board, or you have been on the board of a company, not necessarily government-owned, but a company, could be any company, including government-owned companies, that you are liable for anything that you are personally liable for any decision you've taken in that meeting. So of the on the board of supervisory directors of the company. So we need a tight supervision on all companies because they are government-owned, And
what do you think about selling them?
Selling them, I think the market is too small to sell. You will get people to buy it, but then you will have to put a system where organization like the Bureau Telecommunication will have, which needs to be manned properly, and we have more equipment, more staffing, and quality thing. They need that. If they're doing a strict control on tariffs and rates and so. You can consider doing that. You're not going to get anybody coming to participate in these companies for less than 51%. We have no private people's going to go through and do that. I think that what we can do is in certain areas, we see it in New York, we see it in Anguilla. I would think that it would be a great idea to put the harbor and the airport under one company, call it the Ports Authority. And then, because both of them has to do with the port,
right.
Both of them has to work together. And if you can find a system where bring them on the one company, Ports Authority, airport and harbor, it would mean streamlining it, having a lot of know-how interchange, and also you will have to appoint less people on supervisory board. You see, the idea of keeping them apart gives the politician more opportunity for open basis to put people on, So if you have, we don't have a shortage of capacity, qualified capacity on the island. So if you put them together and put one company, put them in one company, you have one supervisory board, strict supervision, strict control on them, because they have to interact with each other anyway, both ports of entry. So that, I think, will be something need to be pursued or to be researched and see. But to sell, yes, there would. I think there would be interest in selling. I don't know with telecommunication. Maybe I'm not too familiar with telecommunication, but there's one already. Flow. Flow is part of a big, huge network, and I think then Flow is not ready. I think when Flow moves to get ready, because they're on all the other islands, I think they will be very, very aggressive.
They're a very big company.
And they're very big, and they got a lot of money behind them. Yeah.
So, Cimarron being the island that you look at in terms of all the other islands in the Caribbean, people come to Cimarron and say, wow, this is a great island. There's a lot of things, rich island, things are moving. And then you hear that your government is broke, that your government is not collecting the taxes they're supposed to collect. They're only collecting X amount of percentage. There's so many issues here. This is an island, if you compare it to the rest of our neighbors, we shouldn't be a poor island.
No, we shouldn't be.
The government shouldn't be poor, in other words.
The government shouldn't be poor. But no excuse. But Aruba, if you go Aruba, you say, wow, it's bubbling here, man. But Aruba's debt, I don't know how the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance in Aruba can sleep, because they got outstanding debts. But no, what we have to do, Oral, I think, is on St. Martin, we have to aggressively get serious about a campaign of telling people that you have to pay. In particular, the businesses that is making a lot of money. And we have to close the loopholes, okay? I dare tell you, there is too much getting away, too much money siphoned away from creative ways of, using financial service companies, whether it's in one of the surrounding islands. I'm not going to mention any name at this moment, but that causes a lot of leakage. And then we just have to go out and put boots on the road and collect taxes, and just not the regular people. Who cannot get away? The pensioners and the people who work for government, because you're in the system. So government knows exactly what you're getting, and they know what you got. And nowadays they got access to banks and so and that. But the people them on the road. Look, when in the season when the mega yachts come in, okay, you know how much people come here, get off a plane with a laptop and go around selling? They tell you plain, with a laptop, they're going to sell food and whatever, and so to the yachts. Air France comes in with cargo, and you see cargo planes, pallets of food coming off, going to the yachts and so. But what is government getting? What are we getting from it? So all those loopholes. I would advise, and I've mentioned it a few times, let's form a commission, a small group, and go tackle that, solve the problem, you know. And the groups and whatever commissions and so should not only be of what's within government from the civil servant, because what is happening now is that all the key civil servants is so busy, so loaded down with everything. This, you know, every work group that in basically the same people, because we need assistance in manpower, and I would not see anything in looking out and asking for technical assistance and getting people to come. There's nothing wrong with technical assistance, you know. There's nothing wrong with bringing an expat. There's nothing wrong with bringing a Dutchman here. When a Dutchman come to work, you got to sit him down. I've done it. I've done it in 11 months. Sit him down and tell him, listen, this is how we're going to work. I'm not going to blast you on the radio. I'm not going to blast you in a letter or nothing. At the desk, I'm going to tell you what I expect from you. And seriously, this is what I expect. And if I don't get so by 3 months, I think you got to leave. Or I'll replace you with somebody. But you have to be able to be firm and get maximum production out of the know-how that you get.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned the yachting industry. I think the special interest in the marine industry would not like what you said a while ago in terms of.
I think they would like it. I think they would like it, because you know what? Because they're more concerned about not. I know Robbie Ferron very well. I mean, we've talked about it, and I don't think he would be against that because it's not him. It's some company on the line selling food, and they come here and the products alliance here, and it goes, and we get nothing. The guy takes his laptop after in February, March, April. He takes a week. He goes in March for a week vacation. His money is in an account somewhere on an automatic transfer, and he gone. So we have to find ways to curb that and to get something. You're not going to get all of them, but you got to get something of it.
Yeah, there got to be more regulation.
There's got to be more regulation and implementation.
Yeah.
Listen, I keep hearing a lot of politicians, some of the young ones talking about, we need policy in place, we need this in place, we need that in place. Look, you can put 100 policies in place, but if you have no one to go and see that the policy is implemented, you're just as far away from home as whatever.
So now, are people saying to you, Mr. Gumbs, what do you think? This government's going to survive next 30 days?
I see no reason why this government would fall. I see no reason at all. I think I don't see. They from what I've read and so they just got extra support. So I don't see the government falling.
Are you optimistic?
I'm always optimistic about St. Martin. I've been there for many years. I've seen it gone and lows. I've seen it come out, and this one is the last couple of weeks has been very difficult because in particular with GEBE, and I hope that the decisions will be taken to really get down to the matter of it. Let us get the company secured. The issue about finances, you're hearing that all the time. The issue about paying the bills. I've been paying on GB accounts since everything, but I get a lot of bills, and I'm going to go in by them probably this weekend. See about reconciliation, because I'm getting bills, but I'm not seeing where that my money in the bank was taken into consideration. But no, I don't think I don't see anything that would say government will fall. I think it's going to hold. I don't think it's in the interest at this moment. I heard a politician from a new political party on radio while on my way here saying the government should have fallen Friday. Of course, everybody who's on the outside would like for it to fall to get in. But I think it's not leave the government get stability. Let's get over this hurdle that we have this couple of weeks, and hope that to get some decisions by GB and stabilize things and do our best. You know, before I go, let me tell you something that I've been telling people. Because people say, well, what do we need to do? You know, what we need to do, we need to stop for a moment, and we had a great opportunity during the COVID, during the pandemic, to think about it and make a plan. We need to stop for a moment. And then when we stop, we get a little group together and we get some polish. We look at the diamond that is called St. Martin, and let us make a plan to spend 6 months to polish the diamond. Because we talk about tourism, why people come here. You know what? Yes, people come for a lot of reasons, but we have to make it easy. We got to make the life of the people that live here and the tourists that come easy. Let's find a solution for our traffic. Because we cannot bring cruise ships, sell on a ship a tour to come see planes land over your head that you can see nowhere in the world. There's nowhere in the Western Hemisphere you got a situation like that. And when we take a bus down to the airport for them down Maho Beach to see it, we got to send a police truck with 2 police to clear the traffic to bring them for them to catch the ship. That's one. Let us start a campaign, okay, in Phillipsburg. Let us get people, make an arrangement or something. Let us get some paint. Let us paint up the place a little bit. We need, the boardwalk needs cleaning up. We need the buildings on Back Street and Front Street. They need a good cleaning up. So, anyway, in other words, let's polish the diamond and then go back out on the market.
Well, it's always a pleasure having you. Hope we can have you back next time to speak about the steering committee and what's happening. All right?
Anytime.
Thanks again. Much success.
Thank you very much. Thanks to your viewers.
Thank you. And that's it for now. See you next time right here on Oral Gibbs Live. Till then, take care. Bye.